we have filled up that space so much, filled it with bands of things and ideas of things and rules about things and standards of things and full of social media and full of projects and full of stuff that everything's so full that people are falling apart trying to maintain all of that. Yeah. And we need to create a little space for relationships to flourish.
Hi, I'm Alex Fletcher.
And I'm Rivki Silver.
And this is Deep, Meaningful Conversations, powered by Meaningful Minute.
The podcast where we explore the complexities, nuances, and joys of being a frum woman. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Deep Meaningful Conversations. We are talking about the power of sisterhood and the power of friendship on the podcast today, why it's so important to have adult friendships and why it's so hard to maintain them or start them.
So the idea for this episode actually popped into my head when I was at the park with my toddler, just me and him. And I noticed these two frum women sitting together on this park bench. It was under this little gazebo. And I was like, oh, that looks so nice. It was just the two of them, no kids. And they were clearly talking about something maybe important or like having this deep conversation. And I just sort of looked at them with almost like a sense of longing, like, oh, I would like to do that with a friend. Like take the time off just to prioritize getting together with someone. And I also just could see that you could almost see through their interactions how much it was nourishing each of them.
Wow.
And it just, made me realize, like, wow, it's really important to have friends. And there's this power of sisterhood that's, like, so easy to neglect in our crazy lives where we're so, involved in so many other relationships. I was like, I really would love to have a DMC about this and explore it a little bit.
Yeah, and here we are. So I guess let's paint a picture of like what happens with friendships.
Yeah.
Right? We have strong friendships in high school. We may go to seminary or college and develop new friendships. Mm-hmm. And, the intensity of those friendships when you're going through like a life experience like that can be high. And all those friends from all those years, they come down with you at your wedding. Mm-hmm. And then you're focusing on developing your relationship with your husband as you move into like this different stage of life. And then maybe you're starting a family. And then there are all these people that you're responsible for, right? Like, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Yeah.
And in addition to all the responsibilities that come with just being an adult,
right.
And so developing these friendships or maintaining these friendships, old or new, it often gets put onto the back burner if it's even on the stove at all.
That's really, really good point. Because, these are relationships. Your relationships with your child that we all know you could always invest more. So why am I going to invest in a friend when I really should be investing more in that parent-child relationship or that husband-wife relationship? And that's actually the pitfall, which we're going to talk about.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. I love that you brought that up. Exactly.
So, the question is, do we even recognize how important these relationships are and vital to our, mental, emotional health? If we do feel that they're important and we do know mentally and intellectually that they're good for us, it's, as we said, it's really hard to prioritize. I'm curious if that resonates at all for you, like in your personal life with your relationships.
Yes. Okay. I was just conducting an interview actually for a piece I'm working on for Family First, and it's someone who I was on an Israel program with. I love her; she's great, and after the interview, she's like, well, Rivki, now I know how to actually get your time. You have to interview me and we have to like schedule a time. Right. And I was like, because it's true. Like a lot of times, like my relationships, my friendships are like the time I spend with people who I enjoy. It's either through a work project or a volunteer project.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of my socializing.
And that's okay, right?
I don't know. I don't think, I mean, it's better than nothing.
It's better. Meaning like I met you through working on the Shabbos project together.
Right.
Through projects, and that it was a great meeting point.
Yes.
And then you can develop it after that.
But you have to develop it. Like that's the thing. But do you develop it afterwards, or does it just like poof go away because then everyone's too busy to actually take the time to get together?
It's like an opportunity that's given to you. Like, okay, you're working with this person at this job or on this volunteer project. Are you going to take the next step?
Right, exactly. Or does it just go away? Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And I definitely can relate to that. I think for me too, a lot of my friendships have been based on, whether it's work or volunteering or projects. And I do think it has potential. I will say, I think the hardest part for me is, this notion of like the most important relationship in my life, is the relationship that I have with my spouse, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my family. And if I'm feeling any guilt about not investing enough in those relationships, like I have to, I'll think like, oh, well, why would I go out for coffee with my friend if I'm not doing that with my spouse? Not that I don't want to. It's just we have crazy, work schedules
100%.
and crazy schedules.
Like so many people. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard.
And there's like that guilt piece, but that's what I need to tell myself, no. Investing in this friendship is actually going to benefit all of your relationships.
Right,
So
exactly.
let's just stop myself there.
Exactly. It doesn't. Right, exactly. It doesn't have to be like, oh, because I'm not able to commit as much as I want in this one area of my life, I have to neglect the other area. Right. Exactly. And I think volunteering, attending community events, shirim, shul events, connecting with neighbors, carpools, or maybe connecting with like the parent of a child's friend. Does that make sense? These are all ways that we can meet people and we can potentially start friendships. But it does take follow-up, like we said, like when you meet someone at a simcha or event and you had a really great conversation, let's say, but then what?
Right.
Then what? Are you going to reach out? Are you going to invite them for coffee? Even thinking about this like makes me feel overwhelmed because my schedule is so booked, or maybe it's just like terrifying. I don't know.
Yeah, it's terrifying also on the level of like, is that like nerdy? Like, is that weird? Like, I'm gonna be like, hey, so think you're really cute. You want to go out for coffee? It's a little strange, no? Or is that my like social anxiety? I don't know.
I think yes and no. I think yes and no. Exactly. I think that emotional reaction is very normal, and I think we also have to push past it.
Okay. Like take the leap. It's okay. And you know what? Maybe that other person would be grateful because they also liked having that conversation with you at the wedding.
And maybe they're having the same anxiety.
Exactly. So they're like, wow, I'm so happy she reached out. So I'm not the one that I have to. And, I like the word terrifying because there's that social anxiety piece, but I think it's also a little, we're a little afraid. Like I mentioned earlier about like investing in our friendships because, so if I'm going to reach out, but that means I have to make time for that person. And now I need to work on like maintaining a relationship. It's like, oh gosh, I don't have time for that friendship. So forget about it. I'm not even going to bother reaching out.
Right.
Right. And then also like that idea of like being afraid that we're not going to be good friends. We're going to be bad friends because we don't have the time. So I'm going to start a relationship, but then like not be able to maintain it. And then they're going to think that I don't like them because I just know it's going to be downhill from now.
Right.
So,
right, exactly. Like why start if you're going to fail?
Exactly. Why is it so complicated?
Why are we so hard on ourselves? But I think that's why it's so important, like that now that we're adults and we don't have like the same amount of time that we did when we were in high school. Although high schoolers these days really don't have a lot of time either. Like, I don't know. But like we have evolved from our high school selves, hopefully. Jinx, got me a soda. So it's important that we're not applying high school standards of friendship to our adults' friendships. We are all busy. Everyone. And, we all have to kind of, I guess, adjust our expectations of what does it mean friendship, right? And even small efforts to show someone you care about them, they're worthwhile and they're appreciated. Right. Like doing a nice word, doing a nice compliment, like saying something like, I really love what you said the other day, or that outfit looked great on you, or anything, small things that kind of create that glue in a relationship. And, also like we can drop the popularity contest thing that it's quality over quantity because no one has time. And so it's who are you going to connect with? Who's going to fill you up? Like what can really be the relationship that's going to add value, add value to your life. It's not about like having the most.
Yeah, and I think that we struggle with that sometimes. It's like, oh, she's so popular. Like we still think like that. We go to shul and she has so many friends. Like what? Well,
hello, social media. She has so many followers. It's all about having the most. Hello.
Like we need to get past that.
Right. Really it's not serving us.
Thinking about also what is that glue that, connects people and creates those friendships. I definitely have had this experience. I know you have, and I know we have together, is often developing friendships based on like a common experience, common struggle, common life challenge where you can reach out to that person. Again, we've talked about this a lot on this podcast, but like the boundaries of what's appropriate to share, tznius, protecting relationships, all that. But, we help each other and often it's that common struggle that glues two people together. And, I think it's a great type of friendship. It has to be healthy and we have to know
100%.
Sometimes those friendships can lead into unhealthy places.
Right.
But as long as we feel like it's healthy and it's a mutual feeling, what's great about this is you just have this inherent support system. And everyone benefits. For me, I'm just thinking about a friendship that I have where, when my husband was a resident and we came to Cleveland and there was this like whole group of, residents who were supporting each other. And one friend in particular, I knew I could reach out to her to like vent about something,
When your husband was like on another 36-hour shift.
Well, you also know, Rivki.
Yeah.
But, and we could share that common experience. And there's like no one else that you could reach out to besides those people who are in it too.
Right.
And that's hugely, hugely valuable. They can understand what you're going through like no other.
Absolutely. And I totally agree on that. And I do also relate to having a connection to people who are either married to doctors or in the medical field themselves. There's just a certain kind of like community around that profession. And also, seminary friends when, because I went to Neve, and so everyone was like changing their life around.
Right.
So that forms a very intense friendship bond. So even if I'm not in touch with my Neve friends, so regularly, whenever we do connect, it's there. But I definitely have found like over the past several years, a lot of my friendships have the common bond. I was thinking about this as we were preparing for this episode. A lot of the common bond has been like people who I'm learning with, which I was like, ooh,
beautiful.
Yeah, I was like, look at me.
Wow. Sharing either Torah together.
Right. Either bechavrusa or like attending like a specific class on a regular basis.
Like a chabura kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. So I found like that was something that was like the commonality, which, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I'm sure. And obviously that shared experience of growth, I'm sure is really, really special.
Right. And the consistency. It's the consistency.
Right.
Like if you know that you're going to be seeing someone like roughly every week, there's just like that. And like Aliza talks about this in our interview, like it's the time, it's the consistency of time.
It's actually interesting because I know you're friends with somebody, and I was like, oh wow, how are you friends with that person? Like I wouldn't put two and two together.
Yeah.
And you told me you were in this class together.
Yeah.
Like what a beautiful thing to like connect to people who you might not necessarily ever have anything to do with.
Exactly.
But through the shared experience of Torah learning. That's beautiful. So, obviously friendships enrich our lives. But they actually have pretty significant emotional and health benefits. And I knew that, but in preparing for this, this episode, I was doing a little reading and, to summarize some of the, research that's really out there.
Yeah.
5 main benefits. Number 1, friendships, of course, prevent isolation and loneliness. And isolation and loneliness, particularly amongst older individuals, really decrease lifespan.
Right.
So we're talking about the benefits of friendship as, in terms of increasing your lifespan. That's pretty significant.
Okay, right. That's not nothing.
That's not nothing. Not that we're like thinking that far down the line, but it just shows the power of friendship.
Exactly.
Number 2, friendships certainly increase your sense of belonging and purpose. You have someone who's rooting for you. You feel connected to another individual. It definitely has benefits. Improves your self-confidence and your self-worth, that you're worthy to be someone's friend.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Number 4, also friendships can help you cope with traumas or difficult experiences, life challenges.
For sure.
That support.
For sure.
Piece. And finally, another benefit is that friendships can encourage you to actually change a negative behavior.
Wow.
Or take on a more positive behavior. We all know friends who exercise together, who eat healthy together. There's a positive peer pressure there.
Absolutely. I love that. So, I mean, if those 5 reasons haven't encouraged you to make a date with a friend, I don't know what will. Right.
I think they're all very compelling, and podcasting together is actually a great way to invest in a friendship too.
I agree.
Aww.
Okay. I'll think now. Right now. Now it is time for our DMC with our guest for this episode, Aliza Bulow. Alex, tell us a little bit about Aliza.
Okay, so Aliza is really very well known and very influential in the Makarvos Rebbitzin circles. Yeah. Okay, she is like if you're in Kiruv, you're a Rebbitzin. Like everyone knows Aliza.
Yeah.
She's a mentor. Many people reach out to her for her wisdom, insight, and guidance. So how I got connected to her is I'm not a Kiruv professional. I'm not a Rebbitzin. None of those things. But she started this organization called CORE, and she's going to talk about it, and it's in the show notes. And she asked me to come to a retreat, 2017, just to sort of brainstorm the concept behind this organization.
How did she know you?
So we got together through social media, and yes, social media benefits my life. Just as someone like in the I guess like as like leader, communal leader, obviously involved in Cleveland community. I'm involved in my Cleveland community, but, on social media and just, having a platform as a writer and all that, she thought I would be an asset to, to this retreat and to help formulate core essentially.
Nice.
What I didn't realize when I went down to Denver, first of all, this is like one of the first like retreat type of trips I had gone on to Denver, Colorado. I had to leave the kids. It was like 2 nights. It was a whole thing.
2 nights. Yeah.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah.
So I had to already prioritize that, like this, I wanted to do this for myself.
Right.
And what I didn't realize is this whole retreat was essentially modeling the concept of the organization that she wanted to create.
Well, fascinating.
Yeah. So all of the activities were designed to connect the woman on the retreat. And we didn't even know, like we didn't talk about the organization until the end of it.
Wow.
Because she wanted us to experience.
I love that.
It was really brilliant. She wanted us to experience for ourselves, like all these different connecting type of activities. We went on like a hike, like in the Denver, in the Colorado mountains,
that's
and
so
we
nice.
did. I'm not like a meditating type, but she wanted people to experience like what that is like to like have some type of like meditating kind of experience with a large group of women. And then we did these like craft and like arts experiences, and then we had like learning shirim, and we were all doing all these different things all together as a group, and like we really bonded, and it was really a great idea to like show us the power of friendships.
It sounds amazing. Yes.
Like I walked here from that retreat thinking I'd be doing work, like helping found or write, language. And we did that at the end, but I just came back so filled.
That's beautiful. Oh, I love it.
So it did definitely teach me like, yes, you need to make time for yourself in relationships. And it's really, really important.
Yeah.
And since I've, stayed in touch with her and we've been involved in some other organizations, we actually just went on a Shabbaton together for an organization, and there my husband came too. And something we talk about in the interview is like how important it is with friendships is like to get to know people, their whole person.
Yeah.
If you can get to know their spouses and their families, like you see the whole.
It provides greater context, and then the friendship can be deeper. They're not just like in isolation.
So like I'm a huge fan of Elisa, and then I'm like, Tennille, you get to meet Elisa. Elisa, you get to meet Tennille. It was so
nice.
Yeah, it like was just like this is this is me. Not just the me that but this is more context. So So as I said, Elisa is this founding director of CORE, and the tagline for CORE is connecting Jewish women, strengthening homes and communities. And it's really about nourishing and networking from women as the core within, inspiring Jewish communities that we're at the root of it. And it's so true.
Yes.
So Elise is also an author. She's an educator. She's a mentor, as I mentioned, to Jewish women really all around the world. Before founding CORE, she directed Nerla Elif's North American Women's Program for 11 years. And that's where she herself developed, I think, a lot of, her connections. She coached Rebbitzins, also provided strategic development for outreach organizations across North America and beyond. Elisa, as you'll see, loves Yiddishkeit and loves texts. It just rolls off of her tongue, and that love for Jewish texts and philosophy, she says developed at her her learning at Mechlelat Bruria, Hebrew University, Hunter College. She graduated there with honors in Hebrew and Jewish studies, and over the past 4 decades, Elisa's worked with hundreds of women in over 50 cities and 5 continents, strengthening what she calls the social fabric of Klal Yisrael.
Oh, I love it. And so CORE is really founded on this belief of the crucial importance of social networking and gathering. So I cannot wait to hear what she has to say about how we actually go about developing these relationships and friendships. And I can't wait to share with our listeners. So here is our DMC with Aliza Bulow.
Welcome, Aliza, to Deep, Meaningful Conversations. So thrilled to have you on the episode today. I'm
so thrilled to be here. It's so great. Thank you.
So, you've guided Makarvos, women who are, Kibbutz professionals, Rebbitzins, and other Jewish women, for the past 30 years as they build relationships, whether it's professionally, personally. We really would like to know what you do to build and maintain relationships and friendships, particularly in your own life.
It's such a great question, because it really requires that the time to invest, and especially when somebody's working full time, where do they have the time to invest in friendships? And the more that I've worked in guiding other women, the less time I've had to invest in my own friendships.
Full disclosure.
The irony.
This is
So
like
it really,
whose children don't have shoes kind of thing.
that's right. It really has been that on the one hand. And on the other hand, it's really made my friendships go from local to global because I really have connections with women all around the world, and most concentrated in the US and Israel, but certainly in other countries as well. And those, that has become my friendship circle. So I have a wider friendship circle that's national, and then I have a specific gathered one. I have a WhatsApp group of some extra specials. So, and that's really been a treasure for me to have that group, and to, even when I can meet with them and even when I can't, we try to get together every few years in person, all of us, but I try to make the time to visit them. In my professional rounds, I try to make the time to stay in their homes and spend the extra time with them so that I develop those friendships. And that's really precious. There's nothing like staying with somebody and to create those relationships and really seeing the insides of their family and their life, even if it's once a year.
That's true. And I feel like that's a very beautiful way to kind of make the way that your work schedule takes you around, but to use that specific part, that specific aspect of your job and of your work to still connect to women and build those friendships, instead of being like, oh, I'm too busy, I'm traveling all the time, but to find a way to incorporate it organically.
Right. I mean, it's all the time because my job is to advise and guide. So people call me all the time, and sometimes I get more out of the conversation and sometimes I give more in the conversation,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes it really feeds my friendship need as well. And there are certain people I just really enjoy talking to. So whenever I see them on the caller ID, it's like, hooray, a little time for friendship, even though it's guidance.
Okay, so you mentioned WhatsApp groups. So you endorse utilizing technology to stay connected to friends. And you said you make effort to meet them in person too. I'm just curious your thought about that, like these chats and, WhatsApp and texting with friendships.
It is the only thing that can maintain a friendship properly is time. There is no substitute. Time is it. Time connected with a person is the most important ingredient. In-person time, the best. One-on-one time in another way, over the phone or WhatsApp or Zoom, can work well too. I don't think that Facebook or Instagram can possibly achieve that. You can see what's going on in people's lives and have a sense of the pulse of what's going on for them to the extent that they express it in those platforms. But doesn't create friendships, although it might thinnest level maintain friendships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't build them. You can't build depth without one-on-one time. Or one on a few time. As a group, you can, but you still have to have that one-on-one time. You go away for a retreat with a few friends and you have the hour with this person and the hour with that person and the meals with everybody together and the flights or the whatever it is. But there's nothing like expressing that your connection through spending time with somebody to build a relationship. No substitute. Not for our kids, not for our spouses, and not for our friends.
And therein lies the challenge.
Right, exactly. Which is, we're talking about sisterhood and the importance of friendships, especially as adults,
right.
As we've moved into this, I guess, do I consider myself an adult? That's a question for a different episode.
How long ago did we move into the stage of adulthood?
When does it officially start? So why are adult friendships so crucial to us as frum women when we are juggling so many other important things? Like frum women juggle so many things. And we don't often feel that we have the time to invest. Like you said, without time, it doesn't happen. So then how do we, why is it so important to make the time, I guess is the question.
Well, friendships nourish. There's no question about it. That's what brings you to the deep place where you can become the fountain to be the giver in your other relationships. And for adult frum women, married women, even not married women, but let's just talk about married women for this moment. A friendship that's not your husband is vital to the strength and health of your marriage. Because otherwise you rely on your husband for that friendship need that you have, and he can't supply all the needs. It's asking too much. You want to keep some romance and a special space for your husband, and the girlfriendness of your friendship need should be best satisfied with a girlfriend. So it is vital to have girlfriends to supply those needs. One interesting thing, and I mean, I hope that nobody is offended, no offense to all the coaches out there, but you can see the rise of the coaching industry at the same time as you see the decline in the friendship quotient in many people's lives.
Interesting.
So a coach, really, what is a coach supposed to be there for? They're there for you, to listen to you, to help you grow in your space with what you need, which is really what a best friend is there for. Not that she always has those skills, but somebody who can know you and listen to you on a regular basis and call you out because they know you, or push you forward because they know you, or think about you at other times and bring you a resource because they know you. You can only have that with somebody that you have dedicated time with. So if we don't have dedicated time with best friends today, then we pay somebody.
So insightful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned this about not just like it's good to have a girlfriend, it's good to have friends, but why it's crucial in terms of how it relates to your marriage. Just really fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that the concept also that with friends, it's not just like having a yes man or a yes, someone who's always going to be agreeing with you on every single thing. You need someone who's going to push you back, who's going to say, oh, that's some nonsense that you just said right there. Like what?
Exactly.
Like you need to stop that.
That's funny. Exactly. And that's how we grow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we want to talk about CORE, and I want you to tell you about the organization that you founded called CORE and the need it fills. But let's first talk by means of introduction to this book, Aliza, that you actually introduced me to. It's called The Art of Gathering, Why We Meet and Why It Matters. The author is Priya Parker. And I know this book and this concept of gathering influenced you and founding CORE. So please tell me a little bit about that, and then we'll move on and talk about some takeaways that you can give us as frum women from this book.
Okay. Well, I would say The Art of Gathering was not actually an influence in starting CORE. It was helpful in the process of developing one of the branches of CORE, which is creating these micro communities of women that they connect to each other and they gather, and how they do that, and how they do that well. And the book that I'm about to mention might have influenced CORE if it was published before that, but I would say this book is even more important in terms of friendships, and that's the book by Vivek Murthy called Together. And he was the previous, and I think now even again, the current Surgeon General of the United States, but his book is called The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World. Ooh. And he talks about 3 levels of connections that are vital to the human spirit. And that's the intimate connection, the relational connection, and the collective connection. So those 3 levels. So being connected intimately, that's a spouse or a best friend, like that intimate, close connection that you might have, how people seek that. And then relational, that would be friends, a friendship circle, immediate community, neighbors, things like that. And then the collective connection, finding a group of people that you feel like you belong to, that sense of sisterhood or that sense of nationhood, belonging to the Jewish people or belonging to a political party or belonging to a eating pattern party. We're the vegans, we're the whatever we are. So that it's so important to belong to a collective, and that a person can feel desperately lonely if even one of those is not present.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Even one.
Wow.
Even one. So you can have a great marriage and feel connected to the Jewish people, but if you don't have a friendship circle, you feel lonely. You can have a strong friendship circle and be, a trailblazing Zionist and feel connected to the party and all that stuff. But if you don't have an intimate relationship, you feel lonely. You can have a strong marriage and good friends, but if you don't feel like you have a purpose in the world, a connection to a bigger cause or something, you could feel lonely. And how vital it is. Did you know that England right now has a minister of loneliness?
I heard that. Yeah.
I mean, this is like post-COVID, like.
No, pre-COVID and exacerbated by COVID.
Yeah.
But in this book, he talks about how it's a public health threat.
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It
is a public health threat. Being lonely is more dangerous to your health than being addicted to cigarettes.
Wow.
And you're telling us, though, that it's 1 out of 3 could still define loneliness.
So you could still be lonely inside. There could be an existential loneliness if one of these 3 relational aspects is not strong in your life.
Ooh, but I feel like for sure, like at various points in our life, it's going to be inevitable that there's going to be, so I guess the first step is maybe don't panic because it's normal, but
Right.
then, but then what? Then how do we, am I jumping ahead? Are we asking? Okay. This is our, like then when we feel that existential lack, when we feel that loneliness, so then I guess what's our next step in remedying it?
Right. So tending to it is so vital. So you're right. It is so important to feel like I'm not weird and I'm not nebby and I'm not off because I'm lonely. Right. It is pretty much universal, but more dangerous for some than others, depending on how lonely. If you could think about it as a spectrum, and you have 3 different spectrums, and it could be somewhere on the spectrum for each one of those 3. So it depends on how one compensates for the other, or how essentially lonely a person is. And lonely doesn't mean alone, although you could be alone and very lonely, but you could be alone and not so lonely. So really it does mean tending to that, making sure that you take the time to invest in that aspect of yourself. So right now, while we have the consciousness to invest in proper nutrition, invest in proper rest, invest in proper exercise, invest in proper spiritual practices, we have to understand also that investing in proper relational practices is part of our overall healthy profile. Mm-hmm. So for those people who care about health, okay, that helps. For those people who say, I'm way too busy, like I don't exercise and I eat whatever is available, right? And I'm just too busy. So I just scroll on the phone to zone out. I can't even think about like adding something, intellectually nutritional into my life. I can't read a book. Like I don't have it. So then they have to think about how they feel. And if they're not feeling good, they need to make a change so they'll feel better. And a friendship can really do that. So it is important to take those pathways and know that it's actually, the remedy is so much more fun. Like, you don't even have to like cut foods out of your life or add exercise in. You cut a friend into your life and it's fun while you're doing it, and it has good results too.
Yeah, I was about to say, it almost seems probably easier than starting an exercise routine, or like, I hear your face. I see your face. I see your reservations. Because, to start, like, I feel daunted, but maybe it's because I'm a social person. I don't know, but I feel daunted, changing eating habits and starting to exercise, even though those are both things that I have invested more time and effort in the past, like few years, but to like reach out to a friend one-on-one, like you could even do it, baby steps, right? Start via WhatsApp and like have a one-on-one WhatsApp, and you could graduate towards like, phone call. I know some people have phone call phobia. So like whatever, but you could even meet someone for a meal, and then you're like kind of like combining, right. But, like to just take that step and to just reach out one-on-one in a baby step, like, right. and then it's true. Like after you have a conversation with a friend, you just feel full, you feel good.
And remember how that makes you feel, like, and then that will propel you to continue. And Rivki, it's important that you said, like, it's a baby step. We get overwhelmed. It's like, oh, I don't have a best friend, or I need a friend. And like, how do I make a friend? How do I find a friend? You're saying you don't have to be like, oh, and now they're halo over that girl who I just met at the finish because she's the one. It's like, no, I like this person, had a nice conversation, and I'm going to make a small step. I've definitely spoken to frum women who feel like they don't even know how to find friends. Like it is a struggle for many people, personality-wise.
We should talk about that.
And other pieces.
Right.
It really is. It really is. And I see it in this generational divide. So you and I, y'all and I are of different generations. And I would say my generation and above has often has stronger friendship circles. Mm-hmm. But I would just say the 40s and unders often have weaker ones. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that is because of smartphones and social media, because social media is sort of like drinking salt water when you're thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you get.
Wow.
So you drink it because you're thirsty. Friendship, connection, friendship, connection, drive and need. And you connect. And by the end of your 3 hours, after you've gotten lost and refound yourself at the end of your scrolling, so what'd you really get out of that? Are you connected to anybody really? Or did you just get to see a bunch of names of people that you would enjoy actually investing in a friendship with? So
I will say Kava Homer, the experience of teenagers today, where there's so much written about the loneliness factor, depression, anxiety rates of teens these days, where teens who are getting together socially, at a restaurant or hanging out at a park are together, but in front of their phones.
Yeah.
100%. So at least women your age were teenagers before social media.
Right.
So we
Right.
remember.
So you have a little history, right? You have a little history, and you had some friendship experience in summer camps and beyond, school, summer camps, maybe even seminary, before social media. And then after that, you've tried to maintain some of those relationships with social media, but you can't start them or build them with that tool.
Right.
So tell us, Elisa, a little bit about the need that you saw in the Frum community with Frum women that propelled you to found CORE.
So CORE really supports women who are strengthening Klal Yisrael. That's my internal tagline. It's not the one on the outside, but that's really what it is. That's the thread that binds all three branches of CORE, supporting women who are strengthening Klal Yisrael. So that's from mothers, who are women who are strengthening Klal Yisrael, building strong marriages and families, which are the building block. I want to emphasize and reemphasize the most important institution in Klal Yisrael. People will say, oh, what should you build first in a community? What's the answer? What do you build first in a community?
A mikvah.
A mikvah, right? A mikvah takes precedence over a shul, actually, technically. If you're limited in finances, the mikvah takes precedence over a shul. Why? Because you should build homes, al tarat kodesh. But what comes before a mikvah? The most important institution is the Jewish home.
So we need to all have renovation initiatives so we can all renovate our houses.
Well, actually, when we give the bracha to a chassan kala, you should build a bayit ne'aman b'Yisrael. We're not talking about that physical structure.
Oh, man.
But we all should be doing renovations in our internal homes.
Oh, nice.
Because I'll tell you now, as somebody who is loving being empty nested, and I loved raising my children too, you live in the home you built. And you are right now, every day, every decision, every interaction, building the home in which you live, not the house, but the home. And anybody who's hearing this thinking, I don't like the home that I'm living in. Well, you built it and you can rebuild it, right? That's part of the friend thing. Give a little pushback. Hey, you have to take responsibility for the home that you're living in because you built it with every day, every decision, and every interaction. So that could be depressing, but it's also an opportunity to say, if I built it, I could still build it, right? I have the opportunity every day, every interaction, every decision to build the home I want to be a part of. So that's the most essential building block of the Jewish people is the Jewish home. That's the foundation of all of our communities and all of our activities, which is why the Beit HaMikdash is compared to our Jewish home, and the Kadoshim is compared to, it's called the Chadar HaMitot. And our bedroom, our marital bedroom, is called the Kadoshim of our Mikdash Ma'at, of our home. It's a holy space of connection. So the holy connections start in the home. The table is compared to the Mizbeach. It creates connections, right? And all the interactions in the home are all about creating the connections that feed the Jewish people. And the mother is the one who runs the whole show. So we want to strengthen the mothers. If the Jewish people are fraying at the edges, it's the mothers that need to be strengthened. Not just the mothers, the women, because there are women, right? There are women who are not mothers, but all women, turns out Jewish and non-Jewish, are related to Chava on whatever energetic level. And Chava was called Em Kol Chai, the mother of all life, before she ever had a child. So there is an energy of mothering that is there in every woman or in every feminine entity, because men also have some feminine energy. Right? So what is that feminine energy? A core phrase that I've come up with, that's my phrase, but we use a lot in core, is creating space in which others flourish. And that's the energy of the feminine, is to create space in which others flourish. So imagine a Shabbos table. How much work goes into creating a Shabbos table? You're thinking on Monday, you're inviting guests on Tuesday, you're shopping on Wednesday, you're cooking on Thursday, you're setting the table on Friday. And then finally, when you sit down at the table, what do? The mother, she pulls back a drop, right? She sits there and quells as she sees the zmiros that are being sung and the stories that are being shared and the connections that are there. A well-run Shabbos table is not filled with her energy, but it's promoted by her energy. The same thing with the well-run home, right? She creates the space in which others flourish. The same thing with Hashem. right? That's our Kabbalists talk about. Like, if the physicists tell us two things can't occupy the same space, which is definitely true, and we understand from Uncle Moishi, the flourish, that if Hashem is here, Hashem is there, Hashem is truly everywhere, then we have to ask the physics question, then how the heck are we here? Because if Hashem fills everything, there shouldn't be room for us. So our Kabbalists answer that with tzimtzum, right? Hashem contracted Hashem's self. Hashem created space in which others flourish.
Wow. Well,
so that is part of the halachta v'drachav, is creating space in which others flourish, pulling back a little bit, not absenting, but creating a dynamic energy in which somebody else can step forward and truly shine. So that happens in the home. And that also can happen in a well-run community. And it happens in well-run hearts for others, where we create space in which others flourish. So that's what founded CORE is. Oh my gosh, you see what's going on here? We have filled up that space so much, filled it with bands of things and ideas of things and rules about things and standards of things and full of social media and full of projects and full of stuff, that everything's so full that people are falling apart trying to maintain all of that. Yeah. And we need to create a little space for relationships to flourish, going back to the home, starting there, and then building women from the inside out. We are the core of the Jewish community. It all flows from the mother, the aim. She's the root of emunah. Emunah comes from the aim. It all flows through her. So if we want a community of faithful, trusting, kind and caring people, we need women that have the energy to share that. So CORE is founded to strengthen that.
And how do you do that? How do you do that through CORE? Give us a quick elevator speach.
Yeah.
So I only have an elevator speech that works in the Empire State Building because the elevator ride is really long.
No one likes being put on the spot with elevator speeches.
So whatever CORE has its three branches. So the one branch is creating circles, building the community by creating circles of women who connect with each other on a regular basis, whether it's weekly or every other week. CORE supports the women who start CORE circles. Mm-hmm. So, and those are meant to build friendships, to build the strength and create the connections between women within those circles, and then among those circles, we have a sense of sisterhood. So that's the lay level of CORE. That's branch one. Branch two is those women who are already giving to the Jewish community, whether they're Kala teachers or Rebbitzins or Makarvot or public speakers or doulas or Torah teachers or whatever they are. Or I have a special group for FFCs, from female CEOs of Jewish non-for-profits.
Whoa.
We have communities of practice for them. We create a platform where those women can gather from around the world and have peer connections with each other. And then CORE provides professional development for all of those streams. So that's our communities of practice. Conversation lives on WhatsApp, but they're not WhatsApp chats. They're communities of women. And we work hard to try to make them into communities, not just a bunch of women leading parallel lives, but that they interact with each other. And then they get professional development in that area. So we are strengthening women who support Klal Yisrael in that semi-professional or sometimes fully professional way, whatever they're doing. That's branch two. And branch three is we're creating more access points for spiritual guidance for women by women. So we have a 2-year training program for what we're now calling MMCs, Mashpia Mentor Counselors. So to create a Torah-rooted access point for women to turn to women who have been trained and supervised in their training. So we have group supervision and classes every week for 2 years and projects that the women have to do.
Wow.
Within their communities to build strong spiritual supports for other women who are growing. So hopefully time will unfold and we'll create more and more support, but that's what we do.
That's phenomenal.
Such a need, I think.
Absolutely.
We're going to put a link on the show notes to CORE's website. I'd love everyone to learn a little bit more about it and see what's happening.
Absolutely. I'm processing all this information now. I'm like, my brain is like, wow. I guess since we're talking about these friendships, these relationships and the needs and how it's crucial. What do you see, Aliza, as the biggest challenges to creating and maintaining adult friendships? Like Alex, you had said, like there's a lot of women who they literally don't even know where to start. Mm-hmm. How do you even pick someone to be friends with? And then how do you embark upon that process? And even though it's like that cognitive dissonance, we are intellectually totally aware that we need this and it's crucial, but then like, why is it so hard to actually do it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd say, first of all, you are totally intellectually aware that it's crucial, but a lot of people are not. So I would say the first thing is bringing it to consciousness, how important it is. But then after it's brought to consciousness, like everybody knows, eat healthy, sleep properly, right? Keep your phone out of your room at night so that you don't have all that blue light and distraction, and exercise. Everybody knows that today, but how many people do it? So half the people listening to this do that. It's great. I went to visit in Chicago, and I wanted to make an appointment with somebody. I said, do you think 10 o'clock is too early? Or maybe it's because I was I wanted to Zoom. She said, oh no. She said, people are all exercising before then. Like, oh, of course they are. All of them. Who wouldn't be of course. Who would want to make an appointment during exercise time anyway? Anyway, so first is bringing it to consciousness, but the second is, what's the next barrier? So the next barrier really is, how do you do it? So really there's two, because you asked a question that I didn't actually think through fully. And that's, how do you even find somebody you want to make a friend with? But I'm thinking first, how do you make the time? What's going on is the pizur. So we have the distraction, but really Kabbalistically, we talk about pizur, like our diffuse energy, scattered in so many directions. So it is distraction. That's how you know we're living in such important times today, because the Kedusha energy is so strong. If you can't feel it, just look at the opposite side. What is distracting you from it? So much. There is so much distraction today that you have to know that if you could flip the distraction to concentration, the capacity for connection and really revitalizing the entire world, like the whole purpose of Jewish existence is to transform ourselves and all of humanity. We could do that now if we weren't so distracted. But we are. Wow. So it's that distraction that's in the way. So we really do have to prioritize it. And we probably, we have to make sure that it will work. So there's really two pathways to do that. One's intellectual, for the intellectual people. Read a book like Together. Read a book like The Art of Gathering. One works together, let's say, will help you understand how important it is, just drills it in deeper so that it'll be easier to prioritize it. Art of Gathering will give you some of the actual skills, right? How do you do it? One of the things in the Art of Gathering is, create your group. And she masterfully writes the book, starting with how you create a gathering all the way to how you end the gathering. Each chapter takes you through that concept. It's fascinating. I was even thinking about, as I walked into Trader Joe's the other day, oh, they understand some of this. On the street, you see the cool store. So you park. Too uncomfortably. I don't know why they make their spaces so thin. But as you walk into the store, you first get flowers and music. There's the double doors, right? So you walk
the double doors.
You walk into a zone that takes you into the experience, right? Yeah. So first there's street noises behind you. The music is in the middle with the flowers. And then you go into the store. So you've had like a little breath between where you were and where you're going. Nice. So you want to do that in a gathering too, a little breath between where you were and where you're going. So you need to take the time. So anyway, the Art of Gathering helps you understand, how do you create gatherings, whether they're small groups or one-on-one or large groups, and how you close the gatherings too. Just like in our marriages, we want to keep intimacy by keeping some privacy. And we do that in friendships too. So that will give you skills. But so that's pathway one, go with the intellect. Or pathway two, go with how it makes you feel, right? You'll prioritize it when you start to feel better. So if you can jump into a friendship experience, just one, then you'll start to feel better and you might want to expand it. We do have a couple of videos on our website, short videos, 2 minutes. They feel too long already now that WhatsApp has double speed, like
I know. It's like 30 seconds, like the max. I know, 2 minutes. I know. If I see a 2-minute video, if someone forwards a 2-minute video to me, oftentimes I will not even bother. And then you're like, how long is that? It's so long. 2 minutes. Do I have 2 minutes? Who has 2 minutes? So. It's ridiculous. Okay. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I know.
Right. I need to go scroll somewhere else.
Such a commitment.
It's so true. It's so true.
You're going to still spend the time, just not focused. Yeah. Right. But anyway, we do have a couple of short videos that actually talk about how to start a core circle, how to create some friendships, how to work on it, what it could look like. And we do support women who do that. So we actually have like a support group for women who are trying to create these circles, and some one-on-one support for that too. But it is a challenge. If you want to start a friendship circle, which I mean, Cora recommends, I recommend a friendship circle. Of course, a best friend is great, but a friendship circle. So find a person so you don't feel so shy, and just sit down and say, who would we like to connect with? Let's invite them to something. Let's make a lunch. Let's take a walk. Let's go on an outside date. Let's go to a museum. Let's go on a hike. Let's create something to bring us together and see how it shakes out. Just give it a start. Yeah.
I think it's a vulnerable experience reaching out to someone, being like, hey, do you want to be my friend? All of a sudden we feel like kindergartners, but I love that idea of like taking a friend that you already have and then together reaching out to a third friend. It's a little less scary,
Yeah.
And you don't have to say, when you're reaching out, you don't say, hey, do you want to be my friend?
That's correct.
You say, hey, do you want to go to, or do you want to come for, right? You start that, hey, do you want to come for lunch? We're having a conversation about, we just read the book together. We'd love to have a conversation about it. Want to join us? Yeah. And you invite people to have a conversation. You just start talking about it and see how it shakes out. It could be, we'd like to start a circle. Would you like to be a part of it? But it might just be, you feel people out a little bit.
Yeah.
Invite them over for whatever, or on a walk, and see how it works. See if you like it. See who you want to be connected with more deeply.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because it's like, just because, I don't know, like there's a lot of things that have to align before you're really able to be friends. Like the schedules have to work out, like the way that you feel around each other has to work out. There's a lot of different factors that you can't necessarily anticipate. Even though you like someone, it may not be the right time to be able to really develop the depth of a friendship that you would like. And it just may not be the right time. But that doesn't mean never. And it just
doesn't mean you can't develop something too.
Also,
you might not get that goal, but you might have companionship. You might.
Right. I'm just thinking we'd be flexible as we're embarking upon like developing these relationships.
I think that's really important. That's something that I learned moving from Long Beach, Long Island to Denver, Colorado. Excuse me, having lived in Long Beach for 16 years. Back in the day, there used to be a thing called bus stops, where you brought your children to that bus stop for the school bus, and you waited there for the school bus to come. They didn't come to your house, and you didn't have carpool. You still have that where you wait outside?
For kindergarten, you're legally obligated. For bigger kids, no. But for kindergarten, you're obligated to stand with your kid, getting them on the bus and getting them off the bus. And so when you have a kindergartner, you have your bus friends.
Right. So the bus friends, the other moms at that stop, where you touch base with them twice a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
For 5 or 10 minutes. It actually is, that's quantity time. That's so valuable. And maybe those wouldn't be your first choice friendships.
Right.
But they do work out to be friends because you're connected to each other in the rhythm of each other's lives. You know who's expecting, and you know whose mother-in-law is coming, and you know which kid failed a test, and you know which kid is going to summer camp, and you connect. Yeah. It's so vital. Those friendships are to be really respected. And I did not respect them fully until I moved to Denver with older children and didn't have that experience. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, it's hard to make friends without actual quantity time. You need quantity time with somebody to establish a friendship. It's much harder to establish friendships. I still had all school age children. My youngest was 7 when we moved here, but that's not like the same. It's not the same as having babies with your friends at the same time where you're growing your families together. I just didn't respect it until I moved here. So, you have to be much more thoughtful and proactive about developing friendships. If you're on a carpool line where it's just an endless sea of minivans and everybody's on their own, dropping off and picking up, and nobody's chatting during that time.
Right.
And it's so important that you said, like, often we make friends based on circumstances, and not to be so picky, like, oh, she has to be my type and we have to like the same thing. Like, let those other types of relationships, flourish a little bit. Like, it might surprise you, often we have friends that are like complete opposites,
Right. And they can be very nourishing. They can, you learn different skills from those relationships and get different types of, you're fed in different ways. It might not be the perfect thing, but that could be your relational, like if we think about the intimate, relational, and collective realms. So those other friendships might be your relational friendships that are important.
Right. Oh, that's really nice. And I like that, the idea, like, it may not be perfect. Like, right. We don't have to block ourselves by looking for the perfect friend, the perfect friendship. Like, really, that's the idea of like, you're being the good enough mother. Like, it could be a good enough friend.
I love that.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been really, really interesting. Just if we could get one more last idea from you, Elisa. Just inspire us. Although we already have been inspired, but just one nugget. What is one thing that we can do? Maybe it's worked for you or worked for the woman that you have counseled to, prioritize connecting to other women in a meaningful way.
Okay, I'll tell you something that is a little bit hard, but take responsibility. That's what it is. Take responsibility. It doesn't all get fed to you. Sometimes you have to step forward yourself. So, that's what I say. Where there's not a person there to take responsibility, step forward yourself. Take responsibility, whether that's for yourself or for a little bit of our neighborhood or our neighbors. But I feel like in the past few decades, we've done so much as a community to take away responsibility from people. Whether we smooth the paths. And one thing to think about, we've talked about helicopter parenting, but there's snowplow parenting too. Have you heard that phrase?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. The snowplow clears the road. The snowplow parent clears the road for their child, prepares the road for their child, rather than preparing their child for the road.
Wow.
So we might have experienced some of that ourselves and expect the road to be clear and comfortable, when in fact, there's always challenges ahead, and it's okay. I can do hard things. It's one of my mantras. I can go through hard things and I can do hard things. And just because it's hard doesn't mean I can't do it. So take responsibility, step forward. And that's what I love. Like, I can do it. And I see pathways ahead that are so great. Just have to step towards them. So stepping forward, that's what's exciting for me. I'm very mission oriented. I think that's something that I bring. Is to see the future, the possibility, the excitement, like where am I headed, rather than the burden of where I've been and what I'm carrying. Oh my gosh, it's so heavy to carry all these generations of responsibility. Like I'd rather see, oh my gosh, do you see all that future possibility? Let's go there.
Yeah.
So, but we all have to take responsibility to get there.
I think it's also helpful to think about that friend that you made, because you did take responsibility and you did reach out once, and look what was created because of that one effort. So just build up on that and say, I can do it again. Hopefully we have that experience.
It's so delicious. Once you get involved, like we're all foodies these days, right? We all know how to use balsamic vinegar instead of plain old white vinegar or whatever it is, extra virgin olive oil. We're all busy with that. We can do that in our friendships too.
Yeah.
Like really, we have the skills. Yeah. We just have to apply them. Why shouldn't we savor a delicious friendship that's been spiced just right and cultivated just right and stored just right when it's in storage and then warmed up just right so it's the most delicious, right? We all have those skills. We just have to use them for other areas of our life. Let's be foodies about friendships, like really cultivate something.
Foodies for friendships.
I love it. Oh, yeah. Is anything else? Like, I
can
know.
talk
Like, I know. It's really fantastic. I just, I'm so honored that you came and that we're able to shed light on the importance of relations. Like you said, like, we may be intellectually aware of it, but to really get it out there that these friendships are just as important, if not more so, than all of the things that we know are good for us. And just thank you for coming and taking the time. I know our listeners are really going to benefit from it, and they're going to enjoy it, and everyone should go check out Core.
Yeah. And we're going to go out for lunch after this.
Yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. It's important to have different levels of your friendship, kind of your work friendship and your personal one.
Exactly.
Thanks, Elisa.
Thanks.
Sure. Pleasure.
Okay, Elisa is just chock full of information, wisdom, inspiration. Just so happy to have her on DMC.
Yeah.
One of the things I appreciated a lot is how she gave us book recommendations.
Yes.
2 books. We're putting the links in the notes with one is more about philosophy, which is Together. Together, something like that. See,
yeah. It's in the show notes.
It's in the show notes. I'll go find it and link it there. And that was more about the philosophy of why friendships are important. And the second one, The Art of Gathering, gives actual tips, tools, practices to put in place.
Right, walks you through the whole process.
Yeah. So if we know we want to work on something, I think it's really important to educate ourselves and inform ourselves. And she recommended those books to look at. I appreciate that. Finally, just wanted to say, she stopped us and she said, wait a minute, like you're making the assumption that everyone knows that it's important to your mental health and your well-being to have friendships. She's like, stop and recognize that we may not all even realize that. Like we know exercise and we know, eating right, but we may not include social connection and friendships on that list. And then once we do recognize that it's important and pass that first step, then the question is, well, we also know that exercise and eating right is important, but do we do it? Right. So the same thing with friendships.
Right. And I love like piggybacking on that as she said, like, you have to take responsibility. Yeah. You have to take responsibility.
Can't wait for anyone else or some other friend to reach out to you.
Right.
Like, if you want it to happen, be that friend.
And also, like, I think that's something that I really appreciated being brought up is like, don't wait for the perfect friend to just like show up. Like sometimes like the good enough friend is perfect. Do you know the good enough friend is what you need? You know, when you have those friends that have I love the bus stop example, or someone who through circumstance came into your life and maybe they're not exactly, I think you said that they wouldn't necessarily be your first choice, but it's exactly what you need at the time. We know Hashem sends us people when we need them, right? And so like instead of saying like, oh, but I want that kind of friend, like maybe this is the kind of friend that you need.
And we want that kind of friend sometimes for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. 100%. That's a great point.
Here's this episode's takeaway. We know that friendships are an important part of our health and well-being as human beings. So hopefully we know by now.
Yeah.
What is one thing that you can do to prioritize adult friendships in your life? Some ideas could include making a monthly coffee or lunch date with a friend, staying in touch over WhatsApp, that's okay, catching up over the phone, maybe taking a walk together, and don't forget about your old friendships, reaching out to those old friends.
Yes, exactly.
Well, you made it to the end of another Deep Meaningful Conversations. Thank you all for coming this far. And you know what that means. At this point in the episode, we're going to ask you to please consider taking a moment to rate and review our podcast. It really does help us with our ratings and numbers, so we'd appreciate it. Also, if you're enjoying DMC, please share the love and share a link with your friends and family.
Some people like listening to podcasts and some people enjoy watching podcasts. If you haven't given our videos a try, check them out on the Meaningful Minute YouTube channel. You'll see us in action as well as our Zoom interview with our guests. And thanks as always to the Meaningful Minute team for making this all possible. Thanks again for joining us today. See you next episode.